Commission. There's a few items that are specific to the operation of our community board. A couple of sort of community matters, and then the question of the waste charges that kind of directly affect us. So, I guess, yeah, firstly, is everybody happy to make the submission?
Yep.
Okay, so we've drafted up in terms of content, starting off with the community matters that are affected by the consultation. With the library, as we're aware, the library are making some changes in terms of how they operate, and the resolute solution from the community board would be that the council support the library. The council support the request of the library to investigate the viability of becoming a district library. So at the moment, the library sits outside of that, and they're asking that we support their application or their working with the council to become a district library. The second one in relation to the library is that the council acknowledged the intent of the Library and Information Centre to investigate the collaboration, as we discussed at our last meeting, to create something broader than the library, sort of a coming together of the Library and Information Centre, and create a purpose-built facility on the land that currently sits at Kapanga Road.
Yeah.
The next two specifically relate to the Coromandel Council, the Coromandel Area Office and Hauraki House are both heritage listed buildings that are due for maintenance. Part of the cost cutting was to not paint one or both of those buildings. We suggest that being heritage listed, being such a significant part of the Coromandel town, that we submit that while savings need to be made, the work should not be put off. And we don't support it being put off indefinitely. If it was to be put off for a year, it needs to be on a list so that the work does get done and doesn't just get forgotten about.
Yes, and it was my understanding that last council meeting, Glenn, that we did indicate that would be the case. We would look at the building at Thames, the one that he's doing down there, and ours would simply be deferred out another year or so.
That's definitely the intent.
That's the intention. The cost was a lot higher to do that one down in Thames than anybody foresaw.
Yeah.
So ours is meant to be pushed back into the next annual plan, as I understand it.
It is the draft document.
Yeah. So, given the tight money that problems that we're experiencing at the moment, I actually supported that at the council, but I'll support whether this community board thinks this is appropriate as well.
But the only other rider that I would put around that is that it's one area that falls into an ongoing discussion around how council manages our contracts and our work programs. So in other words, everything that we do at the moment is contracted out. Could we be looking at parts of the works that council does and bringing those back in-house? And could painting be one of those things? Because when we put when it's publicised what the Thames Art building was going to cost, which was $264,000, there was some quite strong pushback on that because it's a lot of money. But it's a lead issue. It's a health and safety issue. That building is covered in lead paint. If we have other buildings which are not covered in lead paint, the question's been asked, and I asked a question about that building itself. Could the community be involved? Could we be doing this for half the price if we get community groups and if we bring the work back in-house? Is that future for council? Or do we continue contracting works out? So all I'd suggest to you as a community board was that it would be that as part of your submission, you might want to ask that question. Is there a better way to do things? Is there a way to do things for community involvement or in-house contracting which achieves the cost savings? And should council be looking at that? And I can tell you from the council point of view, we will be asking those same questions at council level as well.
You know, I wasn't part of that discussion, but I like that the whole slant of that. As far as the current TCDC building in Coromandel goes, that shouldn't be lead based anyway because it was done in recent times. So that was all
renovated in 2002.
There's all the ray of sunshine in front. But what does concern me about that council building is this is only the painting that we're declaring. There are some serious stuff happening inside with leaks and bits and pieces that we really need to keep an eye on as well. I walked around the building and I'm confident it will survive another year without treatment paint.
So just to be clear, the council decision was that, or recommendation, is that it be deferred.
Yeah.
Only. So it's definitely on the list, but in the meantime, we're going to be asking questions about finding better ways to do things. And you will have all seen the discussion that Mayor Wayne Brown has raised about the cost of traffic management. So I think we need to be asking those same questions as well. And it's always a balance. It's always a trade-off between health and safety and often keeping people safe. And we understand that balance, but I think we still need to have a discussion.
So Len, you made a good point, and that while we accept that being deferred, we should also put in there in our submission you're saying about looking at a better way of doing things, bringing stuff back in-house. So the community board should include that in their submission to come through.
That would be my
thoughts too.
that would be my what I would ask you as a community board is to have that discussion.
Yeah.
Without wanting to influence the community.
Neither way. Neither way.
I can tell, your decision, it's a local decision.
Yeah.
But, you know, if you're coming back to council and saying, hey, guys, is there a way of doing things better and saving some money, then council is, I think, ready to have that discussion.
And I think perhaps that's a discussion for the future in terms of the consultation document and a submission on the annual plan consultation. I don't think that's not specifically included in the, that's not an item that's gone out to consultation, has it?
It isn't, but you can ask a question
Oh,
as part of your submission.
Yeah.
There's no issue with that.
Yeah.
You can do that.
okay. But, okay. So for
We
now,
can only do our submission at the moment, and we
Yeah.
have to do.
the submission, the suggestion, would be that, yeah, the maintenance work could be put off for a year, but not to be put off indefinitely and needs to go onto a list to be done.
Yeah, as being part of Character House Committee, I agree, we definitely need work doing. But, I think another year will leave it.
Okay, cool.
But just knowing when, like,
Yeah.
how far we have to wait would be a
Right.
good thing.
Yeah.
Haven't got too long,
Yeah.
before it has to be done, but
Yeah.
not screaming at us at the moment.
No, the thing with old buildings, and these are both very old buildings, is that once things start to break down, it happens really quickly.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so you don't want that to happen, because that's when it really does get expensive.
Right, okay, cool. The next one relating to really kind of the operation of the community board. So in terms of our spending of money in the community, the proposal from the annual plan is to cut contestable grants and discretionary budget by 50% each. Bubbles has brought to us an idea where instead of doing that, we would ask that the annual grants budget be reduced to zero. The background, as I understand it, Bubbles, is because it's a lot of work for people to apply for it. It's quite a process to go through. And if the budget is cut so low, there's, in terms of what you can get for the work that you put in, it doesn't become worthwhile. And a better alternative would be to move that money into the discretionary budget, where the community board can decide and hear from people and make the decision around giving out that money. So we end up with the same amount of money as if we had cut the whole lot in half, but we put it into one bucket as the discretionary budget, which will then make it more efficient in terms of the allocating process.
I think that's brilliant.
Can I just clarify, Bubbles, that would mean they wouldn't have to go through a formal application process. They would come to community board would make a decision.
Not technically, there would be no contestable application round in the discretionary budget. It's just that discretionary, the community board uses it for what they deem is the best purpose within that
That's
year.
brilliant.
And at times it has been, because community groups have come and said this is so needed, that, and the board's agreed and they've said, well, we don't have any other funding, we'll use some of our discretionary budget. Or it could actually be something that the board's trying to achieve themselves for their community and they've used it on that. It does have a bit more flexibility than the contestable grant money.
Through the chair, do you mind if I just ask Dean, in terms of the other community boards, can you see some upside and benefit to that? And especially when thinking of the other community boards, would that be an option?
Just through the chair, I'm aware that most of the other community boards will be submitting on this topic. The discussion's been had with all of them. So for each applicant, it can probably take a couple of hours of their time, which is often volunteer time. Then you've got the time of the board to scan and consider, and then there's a fairly substantive administration process that follows. And so without predetermining where the boards will land, probably three of the boards will look at it in a similar way to what Coromandel-Colville have been discussing. I would suggest a couple of the boards may not. They may wish to keep their contestable grants at a high level. But some of the contestable grants in other areas are up to the $60,000 to $70,000 mark. So it's not the $25,000 that the Coromandel area has.
It's all in proportion. It's all in
Mm.
proportion. It is.
Are there any through the chair, sorry, are there any LTP implications in terms of moving the ability for those contestable funds to be moved into the community board discretionary funds? So is there a process, or is that pathway fairly open?
Yeah, so through the chair, the pathway's open. So all of the boards currently have 20,000 in their discretionary, and the proposal is to reduce that to 10. But also for Coromandel-Colville, reduce your 25 to 12.5. But instead, what you're discussing now is keeping the discretionary at 20, and basically getting rid of the other one. So essentially, for you guys, it's a very similar amount of budget that you'll have to play with anyway. It's just it will be through one mechanism and not divided into two. For other boards, because of those contestable grants being slightly larger, then they'll have they'll potentially have a different view.
Yeah, those are funded in each ward locally, aren't they? So it's if those wards are going for a $70,000 contestable fund, that's a local rate. It's going to be just locally. Does that have any implications on the district apart from maybe borrowings limits and stuff?
No, so my understanding is no. It's simply from the local board areas. So it'll just have the impact on the local board rates.
So relatively pain-free, in other words, no real fishhooks in there to make it, I think it's a brilliant.
You would only see the fish hook being if people felt that they weren't getting a fair hearing. So removing the contestability, whether there was a sense people would have that it just becomes a, I don't know, someone's pet project within the community board. We just have to be careful, I think, in terms of our deliberations around how the money's given, that we're clear, that we document our reasoning and our decision making, so that when someone looks at it from the outside, it still reflects as being a contestable. It still reflects as a fair distribution.
It's very open and transparent because
Yeah.
any budget any money that the board spends from its discretionary goes through a report process on a formal board meeting.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah,
And it's not so
perhaps
much.
if the messaging is the Creative Communities Fund, which is also available to people in the arts section. So there's that fund available, and also if there's anything that points directly back to flooding and cyclone impacts, there's the Mineral Relief Fund as well. So there are some other avenues available, right, potentially.
Yeah. Look, just speaking out loud, not the. I think it also sends a message, Len, that times are a little harder, that we can't just give out this money now. We've got specific needs in this district that we have to meet, and we've got an obligation to do so. It's only peanut stuff, but it's the starting of sending that message out that this is a social thing. We need to now get back into our basics. And so there's a small message, Len. I just think that we could send by doing what we're about to do, or what I'd like to see this board do.
Yep, cool. Thank you. Righto. And the last one on the draft is around the waste, the pay as you throw, which of the three options we would support. Initially, I thought it was a big deal, and then I did the maths and worked it out, and it's kind of, I thought the three are kind of quite similar. The middle one was the one that council supported, which makes sense. Has everyone else read the three options, read and understand what it is? Any thoughts regarding one of the other options?
Keep my thoughts to myself on this one, so I have to debate it strongly. I suspect at the council table at some stage, but whatever the community board wants to do is fine.
What do you propose then?
So my proposal would be that we go with option 2, being the middle option, the one that council has put forward. They are pretty much of a muchness.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know how it's going to work, to be fair. I just think that the food recycling sounds really good. But in theory, lots of things sound really good.
Yeah.
And practical terms, if we were in a city or a big town, yes, I think it probably would work. But being where we are and our distances and things, I don't know whether it will, and I'm just hoping that it gets reviewed. And
Don't look at me. It was head council. You keep looking at me.
the base
I've got nobody to point to. Look at him all you like.
I don't want to be finger pointing here, but.
I guess.
But I just think that it could be something that is reviewed in the future.
Yeah.
To see how it is working and whether it is beneficial or not.
Yeah.
And if not, is there alternatives as well?
Yeah. And no doubt it would be. I guess
Well,
based on your
it's not that sensitive, it's-
yeah.
I asked.
Can I just clarify that?
Yeah.
Because no doubt it would be, I'm sorry,
Contract.
it's a
It
10-year.
is what it is, yeah.
You're in it.
So there is no doubt it will be reviewed.
Okay, so we're stuck with food boxes for 10 years if we do it.
However, can I just ask, as the previous councillor who was deeply enmeshed in this discussion, was there ever a consideration about different parts of the district in terms of food waste caddy
No.
collection, or was it a one size
It's
fits all?
one size fits all.
Okay.
Because that's the cost of,
Okay.
it's like, having the water main run past your
Yeah.
road, even if you don't use it, you're still going to pay for the service being provided. And it was done on a district-wide basis.
So I did ask the question going into the annual plan deliberations or the workshops. I did ask the question, given the tight financial situation that we're in at the moment, is there an opportunity for the purchase of those caddies to be delayed?
Good question.
Because there's a couple of $1 million involved in the purchase of those caddies. The answer came back, they've already been ordered, so no. However, I think as a council, we still need to be asking the question, is there any way of this door still being open to look at this contract? And especially given that there might even be an escalation clause in there now before we even started because of the inflationary.
That's a good question to ask now.
So $80 million, but is it more? Who knows? So I think we're still at the beginning of this journey of asking a lot more questions around this waste contract. John and I might have put our heads together and
Yeah, today's like the world looks a lot different than it did
Yeah,
12 months ago.
you do get into trouble constantly relitigating stuff and because like you say, the contract's been let, the things have been bought. Obviously, if you will change your mind now, you're still going to be liable for the cost that's been incurred in doing that. And looking at the consultation document, that side of it is already a done deal. That's not up for consultation. The consultation is which of 3 options regarding pay as you tip would you consider being the best one? It's not actually consulting on should we be doing this.
So just to clarify that, and Gavin, you're quite right. That is the consultation in terms of which of those 3 options. However, we've also got the waste minimisation and management plan.
Yep.
Open for consultation and as a separate thing.
Yeah.
This community board can and should be looking at making a submission on that.
Yep.
And in that context, you can say anything you want.
Yeah. And based on what we've heard today and the concerns that you have come, is that something that, we should go and do some more talking and listening and thinking about?
Listening to coal people today, they don't know the law.
Yeah.
So, you know.
So just to be clear, this review of the strategy should have been done in August last year. it should have been done before the contract was let.
Mm.
Council got its timing out of whack and it wasn't done. So we've, in some ways, things are the wrong way around.
Yeah.
The consultation and minimisation and management strategy should have happened before the contract was let. It wasn't. That horse had already bolted. So now as a council, we've got to go back in and look and find out what options we've got available to us to look at that contract and see whether there's any wriggle room and ways in which we can achieve volume reductions and savings.
Yeah.
And whether we can sit down with the management, waste management and say, hey, guys, let's work together.
Yeah.
For the great good.
Until the ink's on the paper, Lee, it's possible.
Well, the ink's kind of on the paper. As Gavin says.
It is on the
trying
paper.
to move things now, we could end up. in court.
Yeah.
No, what is it? No, I'm just trying to think what you think. I think, so we park the waste strategy feedback. I'll undertake to investigate that and talk to you guys outside of the meeting, and come up with a plan with regards to the waste strategy feedback. In terms of our submission for the consultation, we have the three options: the higher rating, lower per bin, opposite, and the middle. Option B, then the middle ground. Yeah, happy with them. Ground.
For whatever the community board wants.
Oh, yeah. Thank you. So having talked about all that, we now have a motion to put forward. So the motion is that we accept Bubbles' report.
Who wrote it under the alias of Margaret? name?
Margaret name.
That's really cool.
We need to stop talking
Margaret.
about names. And where did I have that?
Oh, is it just?
No, that's just the motion.
Yeah, put it here.
Right, so that we receive Margaret's draft annual plan report dated 21 February. That we confirm that we will make a submission, that our submission will include reference to the library, supporting the library information hub. That we would ask that the maintenance of the buildings be put off for only 1 year, but not indefinitely. That we remove the contestable grants and discretionary budget completely, and instead move that money to the
I'll just clarify that. So you're,
discretionary
they're
budget.
two separate budgets. What the board's deciding to do is remove completely the 23-24 annual contestable round funding of $25,000
Yes,
and keep the
The
discretionary
discretionary
budget of 20,000.
yes,
So your savings is 25,000, basically.
yes,
Yeah.
which would have been achieved anyway.
Yeah.
And that we support option 2. If anyone would move
Solid waste.
and second,
Yeah, I'll move it or come second.
any further discussion on it, any debates around it? Debate, happy, all those in favour?
Aye.
Opposed, motion's carried.
I just ask, in terms of submission on the waste minimisation fund, you won't have another meeting before
No.
that submission closes. But you'll be able to do a submission anyway if you haven't lined something up and you get an email agreement.
And if that's something further, yes.
Good, because we've really valued that. submission. Coromandel-Colville.
We should have Andrew Bowden online.
And
Can I
This is
excuse myself, folks, and thank you so much for your time.
excuse, thank you. Thank you. Appreciate your time, the community really appreciated it.
Great to be here.
Good.
big effort, mate. Thank you.
Okay,
come to our little cul-de-sac.
Traveling.
thank you. Yes.
I'm here.
So yes, we've got the capital works program. People have had a look at it. The suggested resolution to put forward is that we receive the Coromandel-Colville Community Board CapEx work program and operational updates report dated the 2nd of March. A mover,
To receive it, I will.
receiver, and a seconder. Cool. Okay. Any debate on it? Andrew, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Lovely.
Just a couple of things. On Takuma Road, we expect to receive the updated cultural impact assessment from Ngāti Whanunga this week. Okay, this week.
Excellent.
And we are hopeful to be talking to Waka Kotahi during April about their acceptance of our geotechnical design for the intersection. The information is current at the moment. It should be issued to them this week, and then we will give them a couple of weeks to review it and then set up a meeting with them to hopefully resolve all the previous issues. Once we have that out of the way, probably the end of April, beginning of May, we will restart negotiations with the landowners in the area of the intersection, those being the Moore family and also iwi.
Progress.
What else? The public convenience at Tua Tiawa. We've checked that the site is appropriate after the recent weather events, so that can be taken out, and we are still programmed to complete the installation of the toilet by during the course of June this year. In other words, before the end of the year.
And a Gisborne supplier is not in the poo.
No,
Good.
no, they've experienced some delays, but well, I can confirm that June is still realistic as far as we're concerned, and I've spoken to our project manager about that.
Cool.
Buffalo Cemetery, another one. There's not much on this at the moment, but we've got some stormwater issues to resolve. I had a meeting with the project manager and Ed Varley and Paula Carr yesterday about these. He is going away to carry out some further testing of the ground on site with regard to perhaps providing 2 soakaways to manage the stormwater to prevent any further flooding of Buffalo Road that apparently happens with regularity. So we are working hard on this cemetery at the moment, and we are carrying out an archaeological survey of the site, because there are some gravestones, graves there that date back to the 1800s. So we are doing that archaeological report for that with HNZ. Yeah. Any questions?
Can we talk about Takuma Road intersection, Andrew? It's John Morrissey.
Yes, John.
Yeah. Hey, it was my understanding at the last council meeting, was I knew you and I have been talking that we were having issues with Waka Kotahi, their cooperation. They're wanting us to pay for the peer review of the geotech, and a number of other issues. It was becoming a major problem, that intersection. And it was costing us $1 million. So at the last council meeting, it was my understanding that we were pushing that keeping it within the LTP, but pushing it right out, Andrew.
I think that's, through the chair, I think that's realistic, John. We don't know at the moment how long it will take us to complete our negotiations with the landowners. That may take a while. Who knows how long that will take and what they want, because we've put that on the back burner pending discussions with Waka Kotai. But I am confident that, having spoken to Pinnacle Civil, our designers, and HGGO and the peer reviewer, that we've addressed the issues that Waka Kotai's principal geotech engineer has told us he had some time ago, and we've carried out further geotech testing. If we have further issues with the land and with Waka Kotai, then our last option, one that I wouldn't want to really recommend, is that we go through the Public Works Act.
Yeah,
That
yeah,
could
no,
take,
that's
that
all
could
good,
take,
Andrew.
could take 2 years, John.
Yeah, yeah. Hey, listen, Andrew, I think you might have just not quite got what I was saying. At the council meeting, due to the storm events and everything else we've experienced, due to Waka Kotahi's lack of contribution to that intersection, we were just going to end this project, Andrew. We were going to say it's on the shelf now, stays in the long-term plan, until such time as A, we can afford it, B, Waka Kotahi become more cooperative. Have you not heard anything about that?
First I've heard of it.
Really?
Yep.
Yeah, I didn't want to see us pouring more money into those landowners and all the other consultation we were going through. And okay, I'll sort that out, Andrew, and see what's happened.
Yeah, could you, I'll speak to Bruce about it through the chat. I'll speak to Bruce about it, John. But
Yeah, that would be...
I have not been told that that may happen.
Yeah, that you're doing a sterling job, but I think we've got other priorities now. It was soaking up a lot of council time, money and resources. So if you could just check with Bruce and see what he got out of that last council meeting, not the last one because I didn't get there, the one before. Yeah, it'd be great.
Yep, I'll do that.
Hey, the other one is Buffalo Road, the stormwater issue up there.
Yep.
I actually, and I've never seen the project details, but I assumed that was going to be piping of the drain.
It is.
It is piping of the drain.
Yes, it is.
And but there's also, you're talking about some soakage holes.
Yes, I am. We discussed it only yesterday, John, and our concern is that when we do some piping, the water would eventually end up on the road, which I'm advised floods as a matter of course. Forget Cyclone Gabriel over whenever there's heavy rain. So we're trying to mitigate that risk by considering.
Yeah, no, that's great that and then great that you've become aware of that possibly happening, Andrew. But as a resident of Rings Road, close to the intersection with Buffalo Road, I've never seen it flood over the road there. The only place that may have done once in my 33 years in Coromandel is in the dip, which is just outside Mary Foreman's, more towards Colville. I have never seen water going across Buffalo Road, Andrew, ever.
I think possibly what you're describing, John, is really what Andrew's referring to.
In the dip.
And I think you'll remember, sorry to chip in, Andrew, a couple of years ago, we opened up the extension of the Buffalo Cemetery by Brook Beatties there.
Great.
And then what happened is all that stormwater rushed down from the top of Buffalo and was running straight. So What Andrew's talking about is addressing that stormwater issue of the water that
Yes.
runs down. So it's not actually on Buffalo Road,
Oh.
it's parallel to Buffalo Road, but it runs down through the cemetery and it does flood exactly where you're saying at the dip.
In the dip.
That comes out by the little creek.
Yeah.
Across from Mary Foreman's. So they're
Yeah.
addressing all of that.
So,
Yeah,
sorry to jump in here, Andrew. So that has been, do you, is Margaret right about that?
yes,
Okay, so that's a whole new thing. So
Yes.
shouldn't we, and we're gonna spend some of the money we were going to use on the piping to address that as well, Andrew?
yes.
Okay. All right, okay, thanks, mate.
Yes,
No problem.
I could see you were getting your hopes up and thinking it was actually the Buffalo Road drain that was getting piped. It's not.
It's not the Buffalo Road drain. It never was gonna be the Buffalo Road drain.
The board has certainly submitted over the years to.
I'm not aware of the other one. Okay, no, yeah, that's sweet.
I will hope through the board
Anything else?
chair, I'll get it clarified with Andrew offline.
Thank-
Exactly what those works are.
Thank you, board
Okay.
secretary, appreciate it.
Oh, my God, secretary.
Okay, sorry.
I don't mind.
Awesome, rightio on that happy note. Thank you, Andrew, for your time. Anybody else got any more questions?
Thanks, Andrew.
Anything else? No, very good. Oh, well, then I'll put the motion that we receive the CapEx work program and other operational updates report dated 2 March 23. All those in favour, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion is passed. Thank
Thank
you very
you.
much, sir.
Thank you.
And I think
That's it.
that is that. So I now declare the meeting closed at 12:06 PM.
Not bad.
Well done, Mr. Chair, thank you.
Stop recording. It's not recording now?
Yeah, just wait. Oh.